Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. So we've been trying for a few years now to be asked to be speakers for this conference. It's a very well-known female founder conference in New Zealand, and we just feel like we want to be on stage. So we've been really pushing for it for a number of reasons. Happy to go into the background. But this year we were asked to be on stage, and we did. And we stood up on stage at a conference called Electrify and gave a speech. And we want to share a little bit about how we prepared for it, how it went, any feedback after, and then hopefully just share some storytelling tips.
Yeah, there's nothing like starting a business to motivate you to do a whole bunch of scary stuff because the equation that we have is probably unlike the equation you have if you're a full-time employee because effectively everything we do to create visibility for PowerSuit pays us. Like, it pays off. We don't get paid unless people buy from us. So, we are super motivated to get in front of as many people as possible and make sure the word about PowerSuit gets out, which means m unlike if you are a full-time employee and you're kinda like, "I should build personal brand or I should do these things, but I'll put it off." We're like, "Any opportunity is a good opportunity. It doesn't matter how terrifying it is. Let's go."
I know. And I would say in the micro levels in the workplace, it would be, can you give an update at the next, all company, all hands, or can you present what you learned in that project? So I know there's micro opportunities where people are thrown into the deep end. So hopefully we can still impart what we shared and why, and some tips to make it a little bit easier. But yeah, of course, we were like,
Well,
get
yes,
us
and
up
these are
there.
these you're right, these apply the whole way through because there's obviously a lot of people who speak at conferences, and it does tend to start out that you start out with a small opportunity to present at an all hands or present even at a meeting, and then you might speak to 20 people about something, and then suddenly you find yourself with an opportunity to speak to 600, and each step along the way is probably equally as scary. It's just that as you get more comfortable speaking, you the step up feels just the same, like, it doesn't feel like a big jump from nothing to 600 people.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, with any speaking opportunity or presentation, it's really time to reflect and ask yourself, what is it that we are trying to share? What story are we framing up here? What is the thing that we want everyone to know? And then, of course, do and take action. But I would suggest that this one is we were given a little nugget of a topic. So the conference organizer suggested what we would love for you to chat about risk. And I think that was about it. It was just we were given a rough idea of, you know, we would love to address risk head on for a group of women entrepreneurs and a group of people trying to build their businesses and what risk means and how to navigate it and how to feel about it. And so we were given a pretty wide berth with risk itself. So we took that concept and started to think about, what does risk mean for this group of people and what are the barriers in their way, but also what are they amazing at when it comes to risk? I think that's how we started, wasn't it, with some of the
Well, yes,
stories?
I think that might have been how you started because we often actually, when we do things together, both think about it independently, and then we come together. And so the where I got to is like, I am so sick of talking to women about risk and talking about how risk adverse we are and how women have a problem with risk and all of these things. Like even at this conference, and I know that this was not their intention, talking about risk, especially when it relates to women, always becomes a bit like try harder and don't be so risk averse. So I came at this very much from a like, how do we take this risk topic and turn it on its head and make it feel far more relevant to actually what women think about risk rather than all the narratives we hear all the time about us having a problem with risk.
And I think even just with flipping on its head, it's going, well, what are the misconceptions about women when it comes to risk? But equally, what are some of the things that get in our way still? And we had delivered a mini masterclass in the past about kind of fake risk and real risk and how to identify the stuff that really needs our brain power decision making. And so I think that really helped frame up to kind of go, we are not risk averse. That was the message, the key message we wanted to land. But then there are some things that we get, I suppose, that we focus too much on, like, is it don't sweat? I mean, it is not all, it's all big stuff. It's like, it's not like it's don't sweat the small stuff, but we place a huge amount of, because of the way we've been socialized and because of the pressures that we're under to like look perfect and be perfect, we have been placing maybe too much emphasis and brain power on like the wrong things, the wrong risks, which we call fake risks. So I think we wanted to get out a general message, but the rule here is to go, what can an audience relate to? Like, what is it that when you're telling them something, they would be nodding their heads and go, I relate to that. And I think that was probably key throughout this story, that we had to craft.
Yeah, so I think for us, it's about coming up with 1 to 3 light bulb moments. So I think we initially were thinking about how do we reposition risk and retell the story of women actually being quite good at risk. And that second light bulb moment being that our brains actually work against us when it comes to risk. So brain socialization, all sorts of stuff means that we tend to focus on the wrong kind of risk. And then finally, some tips on like some real like obvious tips on, oh yeah, I can change that. So if we can leave an audience with like 1 to 3 really clear actionable takeaways that they can go, oh my goodness, this changed my mindset, or I'm going to do something differently as a result, that is a great outcome for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I loved how, Marion, the organizer, said, she came up to us and she said right before, she said, "You will be great because you are always giving to an audience where some speakers, I suppose, take." That was what she was implying. And she said, "You have something to give, which is amazing because sitting in an audience, you will be sitting and listening to messages all day." And I think if you are giving some insight or some inspiration or something, that is kind of what is a nice gift for people that are sitting there all day. And so that concept of actually you are there to give something to the audience. So that means that you have to know the audience well, you have to know what they're going through, and almost really think about what is it they need to hear right now? What do they need to hear that will let them take that next step forward? Because, they've got everything they need, but what is the thing that just ignites them to take a small step forward?
Yeah, and going to the audience, and we can come back to the the giving thing because I think we made a big mistake there. Not with giving, but how we gave. But the audience side of things in this group was a group of people who were founders or potentially thinking about starting a company or working in startups. So they're pretty close to the edge all the time. And what happens in those situations, and we're well versed in it, is you live in fear a lot of the time. Like you are constantly weighing up risks. You're company may run out of money, you're having to make your first hire, you're having to make all these decisions without enough time or information to make the right ones. So risk is very top of mind. And what can happen if you're in that situation? You can start to think that you are risk averse, even if you're doing everything that would indicate to everyone else that you are a really big risk taker. You can start to tell yourself a real story about that because you are feeling this fear all the time. So you start to doubt yourself. So we really wanted to tackle that for this audience because we can empathize very strongly with that feeling of it can get very overwhelming and you can start to go, I hate risk so much when you're in that position.
Yeah, totally. So we're gonna put a pin in your like mistake we made because I think we can chat about that because you'd made reference to that. So I think we're gonna get back to that for those curious about it. But I just thought I would, each of us could maybe give a tip on story structure and how we might structure a speech. So I kind of think about, a hook is really important. What's the first thing that you say that gets people to sit up, to listen, to right away go, oh, we're in this together, we're doing this thing. And I often find that questions work really well, as to kind of set the scene, and statistics can work well sometimes, or a story can work really well, but anything that kind of gets people going, oh, I'm in this with you. And so we find that questions can work well there, or funny stories about failure can kind of, all of a sudden make you relatable as well, so that you're not perfect and up there like this perfect speaky person. And then I would just say we normally end on an action. So those are kind of two tips, that have worked for us, is to kind of start with making it real in their lives, us being relatable and real to them, but always ending with a here's the thing that you can do right now. Do you have any tips to share about story construction, Nat?
Yeah, I learned years ago, who was it? Hannah Gadsby is a very famous comedian, and they were talking about the art of good stand up. And they said effectively what stand up comedians are of masters of releasing tension. They build this tension and then they release you from it with a joke. And I think that is something that I really like as a storytelling. I think it is. I know it is. It's something that I really like as a storytelling tactic too. So in the middle when you are starting to really build this story or build the case or explain the problem that everyone's facing or however it is in the middle, what are some things that you can do to really either challenge a mindset or say something that's quite outside what people expect? So in this case, for example, we're talking about risk, and I just out and out said, we think women should be more focused on risk, which is absolutely unexpected in a room full of women who have been told their whole lives that they are too risk averse. So adding in those little nuggets throughout, those little, like, surprising twists, they capture attention and get people to say to stop, to pay attention. It's almost like the purple cow. You wanna have these little tension releases and unexpected moments that you scatter throughout so that people don't slip into, "I'm semi-listening, but I'm also on my phone," that they're like, "Oh, I'm back in," because that was unexpected.
Yes, I love it. Okay, let's talk about prep and how each of us prep for these things and anything that you did in the days leading up to the event.
Well, I think we're very opposite on this too, which I think is really nice because it means that there is no one way of doing this. But I find if I go into trying to memorize what I'm talking about, I absolutely fall apart. Like I will get so nervous. I have like I won't be thinking. I will be in memorizing mode. That's the only way I can articulate it. That I can't if I'm memorizing something, I can't think about it anymore. I get so fixated on the word, and if I forget the word, I forget everything. So I try very hard not to memorize and instead to just get really comfortable with the key points that I'm trying to make. In the lead up to this one, for some reason, and I think it is because we're doing it together, it's on a big stage, I started falling into memorizing mode and I started to feel the stress rising. And my girlfriend said at one point, just give me the gist. Put your phone down, just give me the gist of each thing, and just trying to like snap me back out of it.
Love it. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you're right, and I think I've shared this on a past podcast, is I write it in the most natural storytelling voice or tone that I can, and so that it feels as though when I'm delivering it, it is not memorized, and so I've just gotten equipped. I think I've just practiced doing that over the years, and so I don't think it sounds memorized, but it is a coping tool for me to know the flow in my head, and so sometimes I will I think there's like a what's it called? The Glass Palace or something where you go around the room and assign things to different parts of the story. I didn't do that for this one. For this one, I just knew there were 4 sections that I had to know really well, inside and out. And if I forgot it, it's okay because I knew it enough to then go off and still deliver the key points. But for me, it was important to really get to know the 4 key points, and the more and more I practiced them out loud or I recorded myself even doing it, the more I was like, that word doesn't feel right. Like it doesn't feel natural to deliver it. So constant tweaking, I think, is okay as well. Yeah. Yeah. So that
Yeah,
was
I had mine down, and it's true. It's one of the benefits of doing something together is that you basically have a pause between each section. And I just remember repeating lizard, woman, button. And those are my 3 sections. And I do a few run throughs. Like I'm someone who will be in the shower and I'll just try and walk through one section, or when I'm out for a walk or when I'm driving, I try and do it. So I feel like, and actually it's funny because it really depends on the situation. Like 2 days later, I did a talk 15 minutes, so double as long as what I had to talk for this, to a couple of people, again, in startup world. And I didn't even practice at all because I just knew it so inside out that I was like, "These are the 2 points that I wanna get across, done." So it really like, my approach changes quite a lot between situations, but I do think we both share a really solid belief that people have paid to turn up, and it is our responsibility, and actually it doesn't really matter if they've paid or not. They have given up their precious time to listen to us. So it is our responsibility to deliver something of value to them. Otherwise, why are we bothering? Like, if we don't care, why are we turning up?
Yeah, and the personal brand thing you mentioned up top, I think for those that have been asked to deliver something, I hope what we've gotten across is that there's so much prep and practice involved in telling a good story and delivering a message that lands for people. And so even if you're given an opportunity to deliver something at all hands or say a farewell speech to someone, prep is really important. Like this isn't it may look as though people are standing up and winging it, but they're not. And it's a good idea for personal brand and for your audience that you're not. And so just a bit of prep goes into goes well. So should we chat about the
I
slide
just wanted to
story?
do
Yeah,
one
yeah,
last
yeah.
one. For
Yes.
anyone who is going on stage and you're nervous, I'm a worst case scenario thinker. So you've got a couple of options if you have a situation where you might be on a stage with fewer notes. One, you can stand behind a lectern, and at most conferences, they let you do that. Second, they often these days, technology is amazing. They let you have speakers notes. So they are literally on screens that no one else can see in front of you. So often you have that opportunity. But what we decided this time was, and we've done this a few times before, is we have all our notes on our phones in our pockets. And right before we go on, if we're feeling nervous, we give ourselves permission and go, worst case scenario, we'll just get out our phones and look at them as we go. And just knowing that there is literally no way you can forget what you're saying because you've got it all there on your phone, it just removes that stress of what if I forget everything, which is my main thing, is that's the only thing I'm really nervous about is forgetting what I'm saying. So if I know that's the case, it really does minimize that stress a lot. So I think that makes it feel it makes it less likely that I will forget everything because I'm not so worked up and overwhelmed going on stage.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is I will always have either handwritten notes on the lectern, my phone on the lectern, and I was told years and years ago, "Don't stand behind it because it's a barrier between you and the audience." And I that is a thing, I suppose. But also I've seen beautiful speeches delivered from behind lecterns. So I'm like, "Nah, time and
We
place,
tend to
whatever
put
you
them.
feel comfortable."
Yeah, I think especially as you're starting out, like practice over perfection, but also we tend to put a laptop or our phone on the lectern and stand to the side of it, so you still within grasping distance if you need it, but you're not right there.
So you spoke about emotions and your brain a little bit and the emotions of going on, which is why that the having the notes is so key for mental blocks or whatever. But how did you handle any pre-stage jitters or any emotions that you were going through?
Well, like I said, I had my girlfriend sort of do a couple of run throughs. I did that. I actually went to my parents' house the day before and just read it because I was like, I just want to just get this out. And they were both really like, wow, that was really useful. And dad even was like, I think blokes could get a lot of this, which I always like hearing from an ally. So I think just doing a few of those things. But the other tactic for me is exactly what I just said of like worst case scenario, I've got my phone in front of me. I've been through worst case scenario before where I've forgotten what I'm saying and I survived. So those are the 2 big ones for me. I do practice a bit, but I try it's a weird my brain is a weird place, and if I go too far down that path, like I say, we're trying to memorize, I actually just get myself into a state, so it's better for me not to, and for me to just go, "You know what you're talking about." Like, we know this stuff inside out, and we'll get to slides soon, but, we tend to have slides that are somewhat someone actually said to me beforehand, vaguely relevant to what we're talking about, but doesn't really matter if we go off script too much because nothing's really tied too closely together, so I kinda just get back to, like, if we forget something, we forget something. No one even knows that we were meant to talk about it. Move on.
Yeah, so true, so true. Well, I get nervous, and that's all there is to it. I get nervous before almost everything we do, even in the Power Suit network. And I think it is a real, it's just a thing of mine. I've always got nervous, even before sporting things, because my brain is going, what if, like the classic, what if they don't like it because people pleaser, or what if I fail or lose? It's all the natural stuff we were even chatting about. Is that it really hurts to let others down, to let yourself down. You've got these high expectations, you've put the work in, you know it should go right, but things don't always go right. And so your brain plays these tricks on you. So, yep, nervous. So, even if again, people up there do not look nervous, nerves are a thing. So, I would just say let's normalize the feeling of being nervous and Yeah, I went in I remember even bumping into someone that morning right before going on to backstage, and it was a friend, and I couldn't even focus on the conversation because I was so intense and, like, high of, like, a bundle of nerves, and I was like, "Oh gosh." It was awful. I was like, "Go away, I need to go and hide." But anyway, so yeah, I
Can I
just
say
would
2 things on that? Because there's 2 tactics I've seen that really showcase how that can work for you. One is someone told me ages ago, "Stop thinking about nerves and start thinking about it as energy," because you have to get your voice and message, in this case, out to 600 people. So that feeling you're feeling is actually the energy required to scatter to that many people, and as soon as I felt it thought about it like that, I was like, "That's so true." Like, if you're on stage low energy, you're gonna go nowhere. You actually have to be like 10x your normal speaking and actions and all of that stuff for it even to hit your audience. So I like the reframing of nerves to energy. But the second thing, and this happened actually to the talker before us, and I have seen on LinkedIn, gosh, hundreds of times now, it feels like that she was the highlight of the conference. And hilariously, part of the reason for that is that all the tech had a meltdown while she was on stage. So her clicker couldn't work, nothing was going right. And the way she was able to just go, oh, adapt. And she was like, I heard her from the side of the stage being like, slide. And there's something about that human authenticity that audiences lap up. Like, we love humans. So mistakes, fumbles, all of that stuff is actually the highlight for your audience. It's not, and we've both listened to them before, these perfectly polished speeches and presentations, and you're like, it lacks soul. I want soul. Audiences love that stuff.
Yeah, and I think even nowadays, even more so. I went to a launch of an advertising company, probably a couple of years ago now, and the CEO of this company, this big fancy person who'd flown in from LA, even though he was a New Zealander, he had very polished American sense about him. And what I mean by that is he stood up and he delivered the most perfect speech, the one that ticked all the speech boxes. Like, you set the scene and you build the tension and then you release the tension and then you share the future and the vision. It was like this. And the whole time I could not listen to what he was saying. It wasn't landing because I was analyzing the perfectness of it the entire time. And I was like, he would have memorized it and crafted it and ticked all these speech boxes, but you could feel it. Like, there was no soul, to your point, and it was probably I did give the feedback at the end actually to his colleague who asked for it, and she said it's funny, he's had 2 pieces of feedback like that right now. So, yes, be real, mistakes
We
happen.
we also have experienced that. Like, we bring experts in to talk to our members all the time, delivering mini masterclasses and interviews. And we learned very early on, we want people who are real, they're in it, they're trying to do the thing that they're talking about. They're not theoretical experts and they're not polished. And we get this feedback because I went to listen to Hillary Clinton years ago. And I just remember thinking, A, she was an amazing speaker. B, I learned nothing about her because she was so practiced on her speaking points, she would not sway away from them. Whereas the feedback we get from Powersuit, particularly from Americans, is, oh my goodness, it is so rare to see something relatable where real people come in and talk about things and not make mistakes, because our experts don't tend to make that many mistakes, but just talk about the reality, all the mistakes they've made. And I think somewhere along the line, we've had so many professional speaking coaches and people telling us and polish, polish, polish that we forgot kind of the point, which is human connection.
And
So
human Yeah, and humans love humans, and we love seeing the quirks of humans, and so on mistakes, any small mishaps, Nat, I guess the only one I'd like to share is that on the very first opening sentence, I backed into a table, and I could
I think I
and
backed
I
into the same table.
and I could hear it, and so, I think the lesson there is and we both did, is you just carry on because people notice it, and by calling it out, you're doubling down on it, so carry on, small mistakes happen, mishaps happen, like the slide and the other speaker, you just roll with it because, again, it's a crowd of people who are, for the most part, friendly and want you to do well and are there for you as well, so I think that's good to keep in mind.
Yeah, and actually, I was saying to a few people afterwards in the lead up to this talk was actually somewhat hilarious because in the 10 minutes before, we found out that it was running really late and we were quite early in the morning. So it was already well and truly over time. and they'd had this big technical failure. And so within seconds of going on stage, it felt like it was probably within a minute. It's like, can you shorten what you're talking about? And secondly, the clicker won't work. But if you just say something, the guy will do it, which of course really interrupts the flow. And then thirdly, you were literally walking out onto the stage and the technical person ran up behind me and went, "I haven't plugged in your microphone." So there was a lot of chaos in a way that these were all very slick professionals. And it struck me in that situation that no one expected us to change anything. They were just asking if we could, and that meant B, we could say no. And we, especially with the technical stuff, we said this is how we'd like to deal with it. He can see our speakers notes, so go ahead and he can just tell him to just click away when he wants because our slides are loosely correlated. Which brings me to the biggest mistake we made, and I think it kind of circles right back to the start of this conversation where you said we've been asking for ages to go on into this conference because we want to. We have a business to grow, and part of our strategy is to raise awareness through events. And one of the things we found out in the last couple of months is quite often we speak at events and people love us. They love Power Suit. They're like, this is amazing. I'm going to sign up to the newsletter. I'm going to listen to the podcast. They have 0 idea what we actually do. They think we talk at conferences and write free newsletters. And so every opportunity like this is legitimately wasted if it has no business impact on us. Like we love to give. We love to deliver out knowledge. We're not gatekeepers of knowledge. We love seeing people succeed, but we need to pay some bills. So the biggest mistake we made this time, and actually quite a lot of other times, is we completely forget about what's in it for us. And to the point that we had not made slides for this talk. Apart from I'd sent through one, which has a QR code with our newsletter link on it, so 600 people in the audience could sign up. And then on the day before, someone said to us, "I'll just make some slides. It'll be easy. You can," because we thought we'd too late to deliver them. Classic. So we're like, quickly, let's spend 20 minutes whipping up slides. And the thing we forgot to do is add any slide about Power Suit at the end. And I always kick myself in those situations because I think and it's probably a sign of the power suit culture and why our members love us so much. But it is a real handbrake that we always forget the actual promotion of our business.
But that is our lesson. That is a mistake we made and is a lesson that we'll take for next time. So thanks everyone for listening. I don't have a quote, but what I thought I would do is just very quickly summarize a few key points. So the first is that your story matters. So we talked a lot about like setting the scene and telling a story, and you have experiences and thoughts that are worth sharing, and people genuinely want to hear them. Prep beats perfection, but you do have to prep. So set some time out for that. Authenticity wins. Be real. People want humans, not polished robots. And then every speaker was a first timer and every speaker still gets nervous. So don't think that you have to like attain or be a thing other than just you, because we all
Can I
start
add one
somewhere.
more to that, which is you know what you're talking about? And I think sometimes we forget that is you are talking about this thing because you know it. So back yourself that you know it. And it really doesn't matter if you get it word perfect or if you miss a bit. As long as you're up there sharing a couple of things that you've learned along the way, you are going to leave people with some immense value. So don't underestimate that if you're feeling nervous. And all of those other points are equally true. But there's something in that has always made me feel great to just go, oh, yeah, I know this stuff. And other people don't always know this stuff. So as long as I get up and talk about that, we're golden.
Golden. And on that, check out powersuit.com on the powersuit on the promotion side of things. Join our membership network because you will learn things like this and you'll get to practice them. We have mini master classes and expert interviews with people all the time where you can actually take away actions and get better as a speaker and a storyteller, amongst many other things. So
And
check
we're
out
gonna
powersuit.com.
stop calling it a membership network, I presume, soon, because I think it does, I think we should leave this in because I think it's a really interesting insight into, like, words as well when we're talking about storytelling. Membership network subscriptions immediately devalues what we do. We've only just figured that out. So whatever we're gonna end up calling it, career accelerator, whatever, it is intensely valuable professional development without the intensity of time and money that
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
usually
that's
require.
That's a whole other podcast coming up. So stay tuned and thank you for listening and share it with friends, please. And we will catch y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.